Hi, welcome to the Conversation Shop. I'm here with my very special guest, Mr. Kurt Welton. Kurt, welcome to my show.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you. You know, I call you the most interesting man walking, the Dos Equis guy.
Well, I'm glad I'm still walking.
You're definitely still walking, but to me, you're very, very inspiring and amazing. You've world traveled. Your conversation is just very inspiring in terms of your compassion towards people, your compassion towards community, and the goodness that it, quite frankly, exudes off of you. So I want to start my show by having you, Kurt, just share with my audience, you know, tell us who you are, tell us about you, you know.
Okay.
How did you get to Madison?
Okay, well, there's an encyclopedia version and there's a pamphlet. Do I need to do the pamphlet today?
No, you know, I don't want you to leave anything out. You let me worry about the encyclopedia. Tell us.
Well, I was born on my mother's birthday.
No, really?
Yep, and 59 years ago here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And the hospital I was born in was downtown. It's been torn down. There's a hotel there now, I think, just off West Washington.
Really?
But it was called the Methodist Hospital.
Okay.
And that's where I was born and grew up here all my life. Went to West High. I went to Van Heist before that. Went to UW-Madison. But between high school and college, I went to the Army.
Okay.
So about 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, I was in basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Okay.
And then after that, I was in Georgia for 8 months learning strategic microwave repair. And then I went to Korea for a couple of years.
Okay.
And I lived on mountaintops in Korea.
Okay.
Fixing microwave radios.
Really
for
interesting.
the U.S. Army. While I was there, I learned how to speak Korean and read it and write it. And it's a fascinating culture. And I've been back once. It's advanced tremendously in this century, few decades. But then I came back to Madison. I went to the UW.
Fellow Badger?
Yep.
Yes, yes,
yep.
yes.
And after my first semester, it was summertime, and I went to work for at a Cuban refugee camp. This was 1980, the Mariel boat lift.
And that was in
350,000 Cubans came to America, and they put them in 3 places. One was in Fort McCoy, Wisconsin.
Okay.
So I went up there, and I was working for the United States Catholic Conference, helping Cubans find jobs and homes.
Okay.
And I met my wife, Maria. She was from Mexico.
Okay.
And we got married and had 5 kids. I got 2 grandkids now, but she died in 2011.
I'm sorry to hear that.
She was the most wonderful woman I ever knew until recently. I've met another woman I'm getting married to, so,
yes.
So God loves me, I'll tell you. I'm a lucky
amazing man finds an amazing woman, right?
This woman I know now is even more amazing, and I'm a lucky man.
Well, Kurt, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, that's my life, short, in a nutshell.
Growing up in Madison, though,
Yep.
you know, and being a part of the community for so long, give me, someone that's relatively new to Madison, you know, a glimpse into Madison at that time. Was Madison really diverse back then? I'm just curious. You know, how was it?
I will tell you this. Yeah, when I was in high school, there were 2. No, it was a middle school. It was a middle school, and there were 2 guys, Ed, and I can't remember the other brother's name. Ed and his brother, Spicer.
Okay.
And they were put into the school like they were there, and they were the only 2 black guys in the whole school.
Oh wow.
It was Ed and his brother.
Okay.
And they lived about a block from me, and they were right. They had the house by the bus stop, so every day I was there, you know, in front of their house. Went to school with them, and they were nice guys, you know. I don't remember anything different about them, really, other than their color, you know. But then I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I was definitely in the minority.
Yes.
I was definitely in the minority, and it felt weird for maybe a few days, and then I just got used to it.
I can imagine coming from Madison, Wisconsin, going, because when I moved here from the South, that was one of the main, when I pulled in, I never forget it. My aunt teases me about it. We drove into Madison, and I kept looking around, because I was looking for other African Americans, people that look like me, and I just went, oh my God. I said, are there any people that look like us that live here? But it was, again, it was coming from the South, when you can, everywhere you go, you're seeing people of different backgrounds, and you know, definitely a lot of African Americans. So I was just curious about that. So, and you said you traveled and went over to Korea. Tell me a little bit about Korea.
Well, I was a young man lived on a mountaintop called High Point Microwave. On the way up to the mountain from the base camp, an oscilloscope, which was wrapped in a foam padding and then in a metal crate about the size of, well, it was about 4 feet by 4 feet.
Okay.
A white metal crate with an oscilloscope in the middle of it, and this foam, you know. At the back of the truck, and I was in the back of the truck too, because the 3 seats in the front were taken by other guys that lived there.
Okay.
And so I was in the back with the crate, and we were going over this bumpy road, and it went up in the air, came down on my back, ruptured 2 of my vertebrae.
Okay. Oh wow.
And so I laid in bed for about 2 weeks till they fused together, and then they made me get up and start working, you know. But it was a lot of pain.
A lot of pain.
And that was how my career in Korea started.
Okay.
But I was on a mountaintop near Chonan, and then one near Daejeon, and I was just up there 8 hours on, 8 hours off shifts, and you were just supposed to keep the radios running. But there were these Korean technicians there that were really doing the work.
Okay.
So you could read the paper, do what you wanted. Now what I did is I learned Korean, how to read it and write it, and I'd speak with these guys, and we'd talk, and it was, you know, I think they were happy to have someone that was just not ignoring them.
Now, is Korea where you had your
mountaintop
your life-changing experience?
On a mountaintop, yes.
Why don't you share that with my audience?
Okay.
I really I think it's very inspiring. I'd really like to.
Well, it really has changed my whole life. Well, I can give you the detailed version. I was, every day I would go down and I would work out at this dojo in martial arts. And one day the teacher said, "Here," and he gave me a little kitten. I said, "No, we're not allowed to have pets, can't." And he goes, "Take it." And he wouldn't let me say no, so I took it. And I didn't know what to do with it, but I decided I'd just put it in my pocket. It was that small. And I snuck it on base.
Okay.
And that night, I went up to the highest point of the mountain where there was a sandbag bunker.
Okay.
And I went up to the top of the mountain, and you're pretty high up there, a couple miles high. You're up above the city. You're up above the clouds in the morning. But this was one of these December nights that it was so clear. It was so perfectly, no humidity. It was just clear as a bell, no clouds, nothing. It was, you could look down and see the city, you know, the twinkling lights and the cars running around. And I had this little kitten. And I'm looking at the city. It was just beautiful.
Yes.
The kitten, what am I going to do with you? And all. He ended up getting about as big as a mountain lion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it wasn't just a little cat. It was like a mountain lion. It was huge, but it was great. He was great. Everyone loved him. But at one point, I looked up in the sky. And, you know, on top of a mountain, there's no lights anywhere. You're miles from any lights. And it was a clear night, no humidity, no clouds. And I'd never seen the sky like I saw it that night.
Wow.
It blew me away. And when I looked back down at the city, it was ugly and not beautiful anymore. And I was like profoundly touched, and I went, wow. And then I heard God speak. Because at that point in my life, I didn't know if there was a God or not.
I understand.
I didn't really care. You don't bother me, I won't bother you. That was sort of my attitude. Okay? So I'm up on this mountaintop, and I at this point, all of a sudden, God spoke to me. He said, "I am, and you need to know what I want for your life."
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know the "I am" was so important, you know.
Yes.
If you study theology,
oh, yes,
the "I am" is really...
He told you who he was.
But back then, I didn't know. It's just what he said. I am, then you need to know. And it was like, wow, that's pretty concise to say that he does exist, you know. He didn't get into it. He just said, "I am, and you need to know what I want for your life."
Now, tell me a little bit about, you know, when he spoke to you and you heard that you need to know what he wants you to do with your life. Share with me real quickly before we go into the second segment.
Not what I want to do with it, but what he wanted for it.
Share with me what he wanted you to do with your life.
Okay, so it wasn't a long conversation. That was it. And it was like, boom. And now here I am sitting up there going, okay, how do I know what God wants for my life? Okay, so I had no clue how to figure that out. Okay, I was 18 years old.
Right.
But I knew that at 8 o'clock the next morning when the truck went down the hill and made it to the base camp and got rations, I was going to go on it because there was a little PX there, and I think they might have a Bible. I was going to go buy a Bible and start reading it.
So you knew God was real. That's what you knew.
Well, I did now.
Yeah, you knew He was definitely real.
I grew up Catholic, and I was confirmed, but I don't think that it did it for me. But on the other hand, I understand it better now. It did it for me, but it didn't touch my life in a way that it did on the mountaintop. And so it put an indelible mark on my soul that was oriented towards God when I had those sacraments in the church. But if I hadn't been touched again by God quick enough, I would have tried to fill that indelible mark with things like sex and drugs and all that kind of stuff that a lot of people do that destroy their lives.
Right.
And so, I started searching for God is basically what it was.
So I think that's profound. I just want to repeat this back to you because I think it's amazing and it's inspiring. So when you're on the mountaintop and God reveals Himself to you and reveals and says to you, basically He has a plan for your life.
Yes.
Basically you have to walk in it.
Find out what it is.
Find out you're walking in it, right? You walked in it.
Well, not all the time.
Yes.
I try my best, but
And share this with me real quickly before we go into the next segment. Like emotionally, how impactful was that? I mean, for someone like me who I have a revelational period myself where I know God spoke to me and cleared my head of all negative things.
Okay.
And I can speak to it, know when it happened, and it happened here in Madison.
Oh, yeah.
To me. But for me, when it happened, I had a calmness over me. Yeah. People say, did you cry? Did you do all these things? No. Yeah. For me, it was like I just knew. It was like it was like a cloud was in my head, literally, and it was almost like it just went, woof.
Yeah.
And I just knew. So I'm curious to see if you had a similar experience.
Well, yeah, I had been living my life not really paying much attention to God. I remember in basic training once, I had asked the drill sergeant if I could go to church on Sunday because I knew there was this beer place next to the church. Okay, guess who caught me having a beer after church? I had to work in the kitchen for like another week.
You did.
But anyway.
But being 18 and learning and just not knowing, but to
go from not knowing to absolutely knowing.
It's amazing.
It was just, and it shaped my life because I wasn't now wondering if there was a God.
You knew there was.
I knew there was. I just had to know which was, who was it and what did He want for my life.
Now let's hold that.
Yeah.
Hold that thought. We're going to discuss that in detail on the next segment.
Okay.
We'll be right back on The Conversation Shop.
Yeah. Life is a dance. Get out on the floor. Life is a dance. What are you waiting for?
Hi, welcome back to The Conversation Shop. I'm here with my very special guest, Mr. Kurt Welton. Kurt, we were having a wonderful conversation the last segment where you were sharing with myself and my audience God, your revelation, your spiritual revelation on the mountain. And I thought it was very amazing and how God spoke to you and said, I am. And you were determining and trying as an 18-year-old man and you figuring out or determining what God's plan for you is. Yeah. And, as we move forward in this segment, I want you to talk about that a little bit. But prior to going into that, we talked about, or I shared with you, an epiphany that I had, and I want to share it with my audience so I don't leave that lingering. About 4.5 years ago, I had a health scare. Thought I was doing everything right, but again, wrong medication prescribed, misdiagnosed, led to a major situation that had me on pretty much my deathbed. I didn't know if I was going to live to see the next day. So you're laying in bed, you're going, okay, there's nothing I did. I took some, someone told me to take this. Now I'm here. Things changed quickly. But when I was laying on the bed, one of the things that surprised me was I wasn't afraid. I thought I would be afraid. All my life as a kid, I was growing up, you think dying and you get this fear, right? I wasn't afraid because And I wasn't afraid, and what I was I didn't want to be regretful. I wasn't regretful, but didn't want to be. So what I realized, the epiphany that came over me was I realized what was important to me. What was very important to me was I thought I'd lived a good life. If God took me tomorrow, I think I've been blessed to have the kind of life and meet the amazing people that I've met. But for me, it was touching lives in a positive way. I didn't feel like I had touched enough people's lives in a good way. That's surprised when I was laying on my bed. Yeah. That's what was important to me, was wanting to touch people's lives in a positive way. The other thing that jumped out to me was my family, my children, wanting to see them grow and wanting to be blessed to see my grandkids and just be blessed in health. And also what it showed me was all the petty things that we build up in life. Attitudes, arguments, opinions, anger against people, misjudgments. It means absolutely nothing, and it all fell away. What I realized laying in that bed was what mattered was my relationships with the people that I come in contact with, the people that I love, and the positiveness that I gave to the world, to put it bluntly. Right. And being able to navigate that and experience that. So I left and asked God. I said, Lord, if you give me an opportunity, I will do everything within my power to touch as many lives in a positive way. I don't claim to be perfect. I wear my bruises out in the open with everybody. That's why I'm blunt. I don't have anything to hide with anyone. But through that honesty, there's a truth that comes with it, and there's a freedom that I have and a spiritualness that comes with it. And quite frankly, it's given me clarity to see a lot of things. I think I see clearly about racial issues, for instance. I know we're all brothers and sisters. I think it's ridiculous and arbitrary, to put it bluntly. I can look at my own family and see it in my family. It's arbitrary. So I look at and put it in its place. We're in a capitalistic society. There's things that function in a capitalistic society, and the separations, whether good or bad, serves a purpose and a function. So once you are able to get a clarity about how you look at things, you get a clarity and understanding about yourself. And then for me, it gave me a clarity about spiritually, which meant that I could separate myself from this. I don't have to buy into this, and I don't have to be influenced by that. So from that energy, I was able to meet Susan. From that energy, God brought someone like you into my life for me to cross paths, to validate who he is and validate his realness. And for me to have a conversation with a young gentleman that's 18, and we talking about how numb the world is to gun violence and death and killings, and in his walk trying to figure out who he is, it speaks to what God wants us to do, which is realize that he has a plan for us, and that plan that he has for us is good. We have to figure out what that is and walk in it. So I say all of that and share that with my audience to say, Kurt, would you please share with me how you were able to navigate the things that you did and figure out what God's plan was for you when he spoke to you on that mountain?
I can, and I will, but first I want to say, God's plan for you is good, you said. It's so way better than you could imagine. And when I was a young man, if you'd asked me how good a life could you want, list all the wonderful things you want in life, okay? I actually have done that. They're called vision boards. You put down all the things you want. I had all that stuff a long time ago, except for one thing. I still don't have that condo on the moon. But maybe someday still.
I'm not mad at you.
Maybe it'll be on Mars.
You gotta let me visit. Yeah, I know everything's going to Mars.
But I've had so much more in my life than I ever thought or wanted. And it's all because I think I've wanted to do what God wanted me to do. And here's how I figured it out. When I was 18, the first thing I thought of was, I got to go buy a Bible and read the Bible. And I started doing that, and it didn't make any sense to me. I started on page 1, started reading through it. And it just, didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I found out later, I still have that Bible. It's interesting. It's all colored pencils, and I was trying to figure it out. But it was in this old Shakespearean English.
Okay.
So, oh my God.
So you had an old Bible.
Yeah, so I've since found out there's over 50 different versions of the Bible in English.
Okay.
And I have all of them pretty much.
Okay.
And I've read 5 or 6 of them all the way through from beginning to end to try to get a good flavor of what it really says.
I understand.
But I didn't do that at first. At first I tried reading this Bible I'd bought, and it just drove me nuts, and I said, forget it, maybe it's not the Bible. Maybe God's message is somewhere else.
Right.
Because there's a lot of religions in the world.
Right.
And so I started looking at all of them.
Yes.
Okay.
So did I. I went through that as well.
And so but what especially impacted me at one point, I even bought a case of these books and was passing them out. It's called Seeds of Change.
Okay.
By a guy named Kerry Livgren.
Say that again for my audience. Seeds of Change.
Seeds of Change.
And the author is?
I think his name is Kerry Livgren.
Kerry Livgren.
He was the guy who ran Kansas.
Okay.
The band Kansas.
I know the band Kansas. Okay.
Okay. He was the lead singer, I guess. Kerry Livgren.
Okay.
Okay. And he was on this search for God, and he wrote a book about it.
Okay.
So it was fascinating because I was on that same. And I had just pretty much made the same conclusions he was, although he didn't get all the way to the Catholic Church, but I was lucky I started there.
Okay.
But he got pretty close. And but for me, that's where it ended up being, is when I finally started studying the Catholic faith in depth, in detail. It blew me away because of 2 main things. There was no loose threads, and it was so deep you could go into any facet of it. And there'd be a library somewhere in the world. You could never read all the books in your whole life.
Right.
Just on the facet of Mary's virginity or something like that. Just
yes.
one little thing, because for thousands of years, all the greatest minds have been studying it. And it's just one of those things where I fell into it easily, and then that's where the I am popped up right away. And in those stories. And then I started to see something. As I started reading the Bible over and over and over, there was sections of it that said, this is the will of God. And it would say something.
Yes.
Or it would say something and then say, and that's the will of God for you. And I started to see this. And so what I did is I started writing them down. And I ended up making a web page. And there's curriculums in Switzerland for catechism and Australia and all over the world, people using this.
Really?
But it's basically what I did is I found everywhere in the Bible where it says the will of God. And I put down what it is. And then I paraphrased it. So it's really simple. Like the very first, most important thing is believe.
Yes.
And nothing else works if you don't believe. And then there's another part that says be a part of the family of God. So this is not a Lone Ranger thing. Right. There's a community of saints. There's a group of people. There's a fellowship that has to do with relationships that you can't ignore.
Keyword.
You can't just sit on a rock out under a tree in a forest. Okay, now you can. And hermits can do things like that.
But you got the fellowship.
But most of us need fellowship with people. That's so important. And there was things like, be good. Think about what's right. Don't repay evil for evil. Just all of these really...
Keep sharing some of those with me. My audience wants to... we need to hear this.
Well, it's on the website if you want to look at the website. But
we'll definitely do that.
I don't know them all by heart.
But don't know it by heart, but we'll give them the website at the end where they can go.
Yeah.
But again, you were just... Some of those things are tenets to live by, and I just wanted to share.
Well, these are the will of God. So the will of God for me is these things. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm driving down the street, do I go right or left, God? No, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
God doesn't go, turn right, Kurt. Okay, that's not how God works.
Right.
But there are some, when you have decisions in life, and we all have many, many decisions in life all the time, you look at it through this lens of, what would God do? What should I do if I'm going to glorify God with this? And so you end up making better decisions that will benefit everybody, because God wants everybody to have a better life.
But it's goodness, it's decisions that come from goodness and love.
Yeah.
As long as it comes from goodness and love, then you
gratitude,
and gratitude and compassion, it comes from God. And I think that's an important message to put out in that transformation. Now, what I want to talk about when we come back from our next break, Kurt, is I want to talk about how the God revealing himself to you, your search and you figuring out God's plan for you, which is still manifesting itself.
Sure.
I want to take take my audience from that part of your life to you here back in the U.S. and you becoming who you are professionally and manifesting God's plan in your work. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
I definitely want to talk to you about that. And I think it's very important. And one thing you talked about just a little bit ago was fellowshipping.
Yeah.
And I think fellowshipping is one of the most important responsibilities that we have as enlightened spiritual people with God, is to share the word, and share the word not in a condemning way, but in a loving way, in a conversational way.
Right.
Because to me, if your walk is good, you can't
share the word in a condemning way, because the word is love.
Thank you.
And so people who do that are not sharing the word.
Well,
they're sharing something else.
And you see it in their walk, because righteous people have a certain walk. So again, when we come back on the next segment, we're going to go into that. We'll be right back on The Conversation Shop.
It's all about love coming down from above.
Hi, welcome back to The Conversation Shop. I'm here with my very special guest, Kurt. And Kurt, we're going to jump right back into the conversation. On the last segment, I shared with my audience about my epiphany, or when I felt God spoke to me and quite frankly changed my life. And I'm very happy, quite frankly, that you and I are having this conversation, because I think it's God working through both of us to share in our experiences. And we were talking about, God manifesting himself to you and you figuring out what his plan was, and going to the Bible like most of us do, trying to figure it out, and going to scripture, and we pick up the book, and a lot of us read it and don't understand it, and a lot of times what happens, we'll put the book down and never pick it back up. But right. So I want to applaud you for picking up the book, but having that desire in you to keep learning more and to keep searching. Yeah. And then from the scriptures that you pulled out and identifying, what God wanted from you, this is what God says, and this is what God says you should be doing, and putting that together and using it as a filter, or as a guideline to live your life by, which is what God wants from us. Right. So on this segment, I really would like, because again, we're talking to the most interesting man moving, the Dos Equis guy. I'm sorry, I call him the Dos Equis man. He's amazing to me. So on this segment, I really would love for you to share with my audience and me how the walk that you've had in searching, now take us from you figuring that out and still figuring it out, coming back to the States and becoming the businessman that you are, and how God speaking to you on that mountain has manifested itself in your profession.
I would probably say that it was 10 years or more before I really figured it all out.
Talk to us about that. Talk to me about that.
So there was a long time when I was just, going to work and doing things, but I didn't know what God's will was, or that I should be following it. I just still, that thought rang in my head, what I want for you.
And that seed was there, though. God planted that seed.
I was still looking and seeking and trying to, and I obviously was brought up good, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not steal. Mm-hmm. Okay, you learn these basic truths, and you just stick to those, you probably do okay.
Yes, sir.
So I didn't have all the answers yet, but I knew how to live a life that wasn't evil.
Yes.
And wanting to be good.
Yes.
I guess my dad was always my hero. Mm-hmm. And if I could just be as good as my dad,
that's perfect.
Or maybe better, then that would be all I could ever ask for in life.
Well, with Father's Day coming up, tell us a little bit about your dad that's so inspiring, because I think dads are wonderful, and sons should want to be like their fathers.
Yeah. He just, I don't know, everything about him, he just, he seemed to have it together my whole life, yes. And then later on, back in 1987, we actually started a business together.
Really? Nice.
So, I guess I can't put my finger on any one thing. You know, he just was a great dad.
Yes, sir.
And I always respected him, and I wanted to be like him. And you know, someday. And
well, sons are
even though I didn't even probably know who he really was.
Well, sons, to me, sons are reflections of their fathers, and quite frankly, since you're a reflection of your father, you are a good man. So it tells me your father was a great man. So I salute him.
He was. Yep.
So shout out to all the fathers out there. Happy pre-Father's Day. And I want to say send love and blessings to all mothers as well. But again, I don't think fathers get the pat on the backs that we deserve. So again, I want to say happy early Father's Day to the fathers out there as well. And to the mom fathers.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Well, I don't remember what the...
No, we were just talking, you were sharing with me about, you know, you wanting to be like your father and emulate your father. But the question I had asked you was, once you came back from Korea and you got into your business, kind of walk us through, you know.
Well, I came back from Korea and I went to college. Okay, and so in college, I had GI Bill, paid for a little bit, but then I had 3 jobs. Okay, and so, okay, and then I also started an Amway business. I don't know if you ever heard of Amway. Okay.
I almost got into it. I wish I would have got into it.
I had 54 distributors in 5 states.
Oh, wow.
Mostly college students.
Okay.
And the bummer is every semester it would like collapse. I had to rebuild it. And you'd get some of them back, but some would be gone. You know.
Yes,
and I used to think that, boy, if I could just live in the suburbs, this would be a piece of cake. But I didn't. I was in college, and but I decided I didn't need a degree.
Okay.
So I decided I'm just going to do this Amway business. So I remember I went to dinner with my folks, and I told them that, and they freaked out.
I bet they did.
They said, "You're not going to get a degree, you know, what are you doing?" And they begged me, you know, go back to school, do something else. So, but I'd been getting a degree in management.
Okay.
I was in school of business, getting a degree in management, and it was driving me nuts because they were teaching me to be a little tiny cog in a big engine somewhere.
Right.
And it is not me. Okay, I'm sorry. And so I switched to marketing.
Okay. After
this dinner with my parents. And I switched to marketing, and it was a breeze. I got A's. It was just, but it seemed it just seemed slimy. Like I'm going to get paid money, so people will buy millions of dollars of what, booze or cigarettes or what?
Yeah,
you know?
I understand clearly.
It just seems, or sliced pop or something that was so horrible. So I just I can't do this. I can't do this for my life, you know?
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure there's lots of wonderful marketing people. I'm not trying to cut you down. But I couldn't do it. And so I told my parents, I said, it's just not looking good. This Amway business is, I think, the way to go. And my dad said, try real estate. So they had this Real Estate 101 class. It was taught by a guy named Professor James Grasscamp at the university. And it was just mind-boggling. It opened my mind to the world of real estate. And I realized that real estate had much more to offer than boxes of soap.
Than Amway. Hey, Amway did pretty good, though.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing wrong with Amway. It's a great business if you got nothing. If you're a college student, you need some money, you know. But so I got a degree in urban land economics, they call it.
Okay.
And I went to work for a company called Executive Management in Madison. They're still around.
Okay.
They own some office buildings on the square and off the square. Where Paisans is, you know. They own the University Square.
Okay.
That big thing, and a bunch of other stuff, warehouses and stuff. So I worked there, and I was building office buildings and syndicating shopping centers and just doing a little bit of everything I could, you know, renting, selling little office buildings and renting warehouses out by the airport, you know, I just decided at one point I'm going to leave here. I didn't want to stay there.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into why, but I just didn't want to stay at this particular company.
Okay.
And my dad said to me, let's start our own company. I said, okay. So he was in Florida between October and May every year.
Okay.
So sometime around in October, November, I started my own company.
Okay.
And when my dad came back in May from Florida, and I said, there's your office. And I said, and you do whatever you want to do. I said, but we were managing a couple little buildings, and I was hustling to sell real estate, and on the weekends and evenings I would batch the transactions and post to the general ledger and create financial statements. And
but you worked for
my
yourself.
wife answered the phone, yep, for a then until we started having too many kids. Then I had to hire someone to do that.
No, I understand.
You know, but it just grew over time, and then one of my first dark nights of the soul came.
Okay.
My dad was my hero, but he was starting to become onerous.
Okay. I hear you.
He wouldn't do what I wanted him to do. Mm-hmm. And I decided that since I was the kid, maybe he knew better, I didn't think so, but I thought, I'm just not going to argue with him, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. So I told him one day, Dad, I'm leaving. And he goes, where are you going? I said, I don't know, but I can't work here anymore because I get mad at you, and I don't want to be mad at you because you're my hero.
Right, I hear you loud and clear.
And I'm sorry, but it's my problem. And I left, and I just started at the Star Company. And
I know the Star Company well.
Yep. Went to the Star Company and became one of their top agents, and was there for about 5 years. And one day I got a phone call from my dad. He wanted me to come back.
I bet he did.
And took a while, a few lunches at Nakoma, that kind of thing. But I finally agreed to come back. And then 2 years later, he had a massive stroke, and I ended up taking over the company.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And and he died in 2015. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
But that was 30 years.
Yeah.
I ran the company about 22 years of it.
I got into a little bit of real estate here with Bill Levy up at
the
Towers and the Regent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Bill was hey, shout out to Mr. Bill Levy. He actually, I count Mr. Levy as one of my mentors. He is one of the people in college that taught me business, taught me management, and actually turned me into a shark.
Oh yeah.
He definitely turned me into a shark. So, and I have a lot of respect for him. He, the lessons
you
that I
managed
learned
the Regent?
Here, I managed the Towers.
The Towers, okay.
And the Regent. I started out as literally student help in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
And then I ended up being assistant general manager running the food service program in college, and then ended up working and running. Ended up as assistant GM of the building.
I should tell you, when I was in Korea, when I went to the second mountain, I found out that the cook was taking about half the food and stopping at his little hooch down there and dropping it off and then selling it.
Making that extra money.
And I complained. I said, this is bullshit. Where I came from, we'd have choice of 2 different entrees at least and 3 different vegetables, blah, blah, blah. And we were just getting, this is eat it, So I complained. So he disappeared, and the guy in charge goes, you get to run the kitchen. So for about 3 months, I ran a kitchen that fed 25 soldiers and about 125 Koreans.
Yes.
And
learned a lot. I learned that I can tell you
at 3 o'clock in the morning for breakfast, and then you have to plan. I had to plan the meals. I had to get the rations. I had to make it all happen.
Yes.
And I didn't get to just sit there and fix the radios, which was really fun and easy.
I agree.
That was hard work, but it was definitely a valuable experience.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing. We talk about, and I know you and I and Susan have had conversations, and I just want to say this, that, not to go back to Bill, but from coming to Madison and being blessed to meet good people who have set me on the right path, or God bringing people into your lives to push you in certain directions, I can tell you that he was one of those people for me. And since I brought his name up, I want to send blessings and well wishes to Mr. Levy, his family, his son, and everything that he touches, because he's a good man. I send blessings to you. He was impactful in my life.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
Yes, but had to share that. But we're going to come back in a little bit on the next segment, kind of tie everything up, talk about God manifesting again towards in your life and what you're doing currently. And just want to share with my audience on the next segment the benefits of surrounding yourself with good people and like-minded people.
Oh, yes.
So again, we'll be right back on The Conversation Shop.
Get up and show us what you got. Get up and show us some more.
Hi, welcome back to The Conversation Shop. I'm here with my very special guest, the Dos Equis man. Nah, I call it Kurt. You are the most interesting man I know, and very inspiring.
And you hardly know me.
Hey, I judge people by the energy I feel from them, and quite frankly, I know your fiance, and the things that she shared about you tells me and lets me know you're an amazing person. Okay. And when I met you for the first time, quite frankly, your energy, your dancing, your thirst for life is infectious. And it just showed me, it told me who you were. Sometimes God kind of touches you.
Yes, shoulder taps.
Okay, so I got a shoulder tap.
Yep.
So I don't need to know you for, there's some people you don't need to know for years to know that they're good people.
Okay.
And to know that they're people that you want to be around.
Yeah.
And you're one of those people. Okay, so I definitely had to say that, and inspiring in a way to where I think your life is amazing to be on a mountaintop and to have God speak to you, and number one, be willing to say it and talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, most people are embarrassed, though, which I don't understand, to talk about the reality of God in their life and how he manifests himself.
Maybe he's not real enough in their life.
Well,
if they're embarrassed about it.
Embarrassed means they're not listening enough or they got something wrong. But what I like to say to everyone is, you know, God, and I had to say this to myself, you know, God manifests himself in your life every single day if you listen.
Oh, yeah.
If you pay attention. You know, I came up, again, wanting to, not knowing, you know, with this thirst for, okay, all I know is how to provide, work hard and provide for my family. So as long as I'm doing that, I must be doing something right. But there was an emptiness that I always have. I'd have people ask me, what are you passionate about?
Yeah.
What are you passionate about? And when the funny thing is, now that I'm talking to you, I always knew what I was passionate about. Yeah. I just pushed it to the back of my mind. I knew I was passionate about people. I know I'm passionate about helping people. And you know, in my walk, my gift is conversation. My gift is being able to have a conversation with anyone, to talk about anything, and to take the seeds from that conversation and spread them out to everyone. And if something good comes from that, then I've done my job. And everything that I'm doing doesn't come from a place of want or need, or I got to get something. It truly comes from a good space. And again, I say all of that to say that's the energy that I feel from you, and that's the energy that I know is behind the things that you're doing. So prior to us ending the show, I want you to share with my audience again how God has manifested himself into your life. And also I want you to end with some of the things that amazing things you're doing in this community to help people as well, if you don't mind sharing some of those things. And I want to defer to you.
Well, it's interesting you talk about spreading the good seed. And there was a point in time when I was learning to become a deacon in the church. And they said, you need to find out what your name is. What's your name? And I ended up coming up with Spendos Kalos Sporos, which is Greek for the sower of good seed. That's my name. I
like that.
I'm the sower of good seed. It's not up to me to chase the crows or to pick rocks or weeds or to chase the wolves or whatever. I'm just spreading the good seed, and it'll grow if it hits good soil.
Yes.
I'm not here to break up the ground and till it or to fertilize or whatever. I just spread the good seed. It's up to God for the increase. So the more good people you can spread good seed to, that's a good thing.
Yes, sir.
And but I notice there's some people as they go through life, they feel it's their job to like chase the crows or to beat the rocks or whatever. And
I haven't heard it that way, but I understand clearly. Yes, let's talk about that.
So for me, it's spreading the good seed.
Yes, sir.
And so that's one of the ways that this is manifested in my life is this, what does God want me to do? Spread the good seed. Now, it's interesting, your little vision of on your deathbed. You know, how many people have you touched?
Yes.
You know, and we probably could never touch as many as we'd like to.
Right.
But I see being able to touch many, many more people now that I've met Susan, because our stories individually are powerful.
Yes.
But when they come together, it's just amazing. And so that to me is also part of this God's will.
Yes, sir.
That he would want to put me with someone that has such a powerful story as well, that together it could inspire so many people in so many ways. And I guess so to that end, I've always had in my heart this desire to, help out in any way I can. And what do I do? Well, I'm in real estate. Okay, so if I was baking bread, then maybe I could bake extra loaves for the poor.
I hear you.
But I don't bake bread, okay? I have space. So how can I take my space and help other people with it?
Yes.
So over the years, we've given warehouses to the Red Cross and to, other charities, Books for the World and things like that, just at no cost. There was a radio station, a Catholic radio station when they first started up. We gave them a studio.
Oh, nice.
And that kind of thing. So there's a clinic that I've been a benefactor of since it started. And they provide free health care for people who do not have insurance.
Okay.
Okay.
And so we need that.
If you don't have insurance, they don't care why. My wife was a translator there. A lot of people who just speak Spanish.
I understand.
And so my wife was from Mexico, so she was a translator at this clinic, and it's just free care, 5 days a week. And so I thought, what, it would be nice. They could give more care if they didn't have to pay rent. So they're paying rent now to someone over on Odana Road to have this clinic. And I thought, well, if I could give them space, where they don't have to pay rent, that'd really be nice. So I was, been looking up and down Park Street for years and years, trying to figure out where could I find something.
Yes, sir.
Because this is a neighborhood that could use something like that, I think. It would be very useful in terms of real estate, location,
Yes, sir.
So you've got a free clinic for people without insurance. Where can we put that in Madison where it's most useful? And I thought, well, Park Street area is probably one area of many. There's probably many areas, but that would be a good one.
Yes, it is.
And so, the pieces came together, and I was able to acquire some property in that area, and so we're working on trying to get something like that done right now.
Okay.
But there's no sure deals, and things get complicated sometimes. But we'll have to see where it ends up.
But I celebrate you with that. You're talking about community.
Yeah.
You're talking about rebuilding a community.
Well, that would be what I would hope it would inspire and happen. That it would become like a catalyst for more development in the area.
Yes.
But now, for example, when you speak of community, there's a community of nuns.
Yes.
There's 25 nuns. They're living in this mold-infested rat hole.
Yes.
And they need a nice monastery. So I'm also working to try to provide a nice monastery for some nuns. And we've raised enough money to buy a nice piece of land where they can fit it, and we've got the plans drawn up, and now we need to raise a little more before we can actually break ground. But so that's another kind of thing. And these nuns are cloistered, which means once they enter the monastery, they never come out.
Oh, wow.
Unless like a family member dies or something, they can go to the funeral. But they stay there, and they're behind an enclosure.
And that commitment.
And and they make bread. This particular group of nuns, they make bread for about 500 parishes in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
The altar bread, So, but they support themselves. But
I want to offer my assistance with anything that you guys are doing in the community with the nuns religiously and whatnot. It's my pleasure to be a part of anything
there's so many things going on.
Participating in that space.
There's so many things going on. Every year we used to send out a lot of Christmas cards and cheese and meat and gifts.
Yes.
And now we give money to like Porchlight and Second Harvest and groups where they're providing food, clothing, shelter, this kind of thing for people.
Yes, sir.
In addition to the clinic, I was hoping to put together, services for women and children, pregnancy helpline and DAIS and things like that. Organizations where the focus is on women and children and helping them cope in this world that can get really crazy sometimes.
Yes.
And so, there's just a lot of things that are out there. There's just so many opportunities.
Understand. Well, Kurt, prior to us ending this segment, share with my audience, give them any information about anything that you have going on, any volunteering opportunities, any assistance that you may need on anything. And if you don't have that, please leave us with some kind words of wisdom to live by.
Well,
if you can, in your years and in your inspiration,
yeah.
Please just leave us with some good words.
Well, okay. If there was one thing that I would ask everybody to do, and that would be to pray.
Okay.
Because we are all connected. We are all one. And prayer is a way to energize that connection.
Yes.
And it works. It's amazing. I've been going through some health issues, and I had pain in level 8, 9.
Oh, wow.
All the time for a while. And I put a video out on Facebook. of me in pain saying, this is what's going on with me. This is why you don't see me out and around, because I'm just laying in bed here, withering away and dying.
I understand.
And my pain level went down over the next week to half, just boom. People, you know, like
the power of
all
prayer.
these people posted they were praying for me, and I was like, wow, I could feel it. It really is amazing. And so pray. It says pray unceasingly in Thessalonians. So, you know, just pray. That's the one thing. That would be the greatest wisdom. And you will be the books you read and the people that you know. So read a lot and get to know as many people as you can, and stick around the good ones.
Well, Kurt, I want to thank you for being a guest on The Conversation Shop. It's been a pleasure.
Me too.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time on The Conversation Shop.